Good. Let's go with it.
All right. Blood Blister Radio's back. Special guest, Olympian, running coach, entrepreneur, good man in general, my friend, my coach, Jonathan Johnson in the house. Jonathan, welcome, man.
Thank you, Dan, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Good. How you doing?
It's going well. I was like, am I going to be nervous or whatever? You know, I do a lot of interviews, but every interview is different. But I'm looking forward to this one, you know, knowing you personally and everything. I feel like it's going to be a special time that we're going to have in here, and we're going to give the audience a little bit to, you know, listen to and go from there.
Deal. Well, it's funny. Hearing you say you were nervous for this already brings me back to a story from just the other day when I told you what was going on with Blood Blister Radio and you know, the Blood Blister apparel shirt. And you said, Dan, I can help you. I know, you know, some professional runners and some guys. Maybe you could have them come on to interview them. And I said, Jonathan, you're an Olympian. You're the guy I want on the show. So here's what I'm hoping to do today, man. I'm hoping for some people to hear some of the stories that you have and to get to know the Jonathan I know that really changed my life. And I kind of want to start things just in three parts, man. You know, Jonathan, the runner, the Olympian, Jonathan, the running coach that really helps people, and Jonathan, the entrepreneur, you know, kind of spreading this coaching business coast to coast. But let's start with where it all started, man. You know, let's just talk about your experiences as a runner growing into a world-class runner and an Olympian. Let's just start there, man.
Yeah, let's start there. So I, you know, as I go in and I tell my story, you know, I get asked a lot, you know, where did everything begin? And I look back and, you know, it's all in my childhood. You know, I believe like most dreams every dream start, you know, when you're very, very young. People always say, well, you know, I think by the time we're like real little kids, like we kind of know what we want to do. You know, maybe we have distractions and stuff as we grow up, but I think we already know what we want to do. Like when I was little, I was like, oh, I want to be, you know, in the business. I knew I was fast. You know, I knew I loved running. But at the same time, did I ever know I was going to be in the business field? Not really, but I think that's where my heart was from the time I was young. But it's one of those things where, you know, I just started off when I was a young kid, man. I just, you know, was racing cousins and friends and, you know, playing with you know, how we used to have playtime when everybody knew each other in the neighborhood and you knew all the kids, you knew all the families around. It seemed like we kind of, like those things kind of changed a little bit. But we had an opportunity to get out there and compete, and we learned how to be competitive in the streets and, you know, to go out there and just to learn the things that it takes to become great. You know, we was already learning how to, you know, just by playing as a kid, we was training, didn't even know it, but we was already training.
How old were you compared to the other kids in the neighborhood?
Well, I was, you know, in the neighborhood, everybody, you got, you know, you could be 10, you could be 12, you could be 15.
You could be
all
7.
the way up to 18, you know. I remember times going out there playing with adults, and I think that's where we learned a lot of, you know, what does it take to become an athlete, you know, because a lot of times they didn't take it lightly on us. You know, if we came out there and played, you know, if you played then, you was gonna come out there and play. So if you're a young, you know, young boy and you want to go out there with the adults and play, well, they're gonna treat you like an adult in athletics, and so they're not gonna give you any pass or anything just because you're young. And so we learned at a young age to go out there and compete hard. And if you want to go out there with the grown folks, well, you know what, you better not cry about it. You better show up, and then you better not give up, because if you give up, then you're gonna have to face it later on.
And what sports are you doing? I mean, is this football? Is this pickup basketball? What sports are you doing where you're getting roughed up by full-grown adults?
Well, it was football. So we used to go over to the elementary school, jump the fence, go over there. It'd be about almost like 30-something people outside, and half of them were like, you know, way older. But you know, that was our chance to get out and you know, a lot of my cousins, I had a lot older cousins who played football, and you know, they were tough guys, and you know, I wanted to grow up and be tough too. Except, you know, I wasn't as small. I mean, I wasn't as big as those guys, and so, you know, I always had to work a little bit harder to make teams and stuff. And then, you know, growing up with a brother who's maybe a little bit more athletic than you, you know, as while you're growing up, you know, he's making all the the sports team, A teams, and all those things. Which very proud of my brother for all his accomplishments and everything that he done as well. But it just taught me at an early age that, you know, if you're going to ever go out and succeed at anything, you definitely gonna have to work for it. Because first of all, it's not gonna be given to you. But at the same time, even though it's not given to you or you're not the best, it doesn't mean that you can't, you know, become a great athlete or an athlete that could support, you know, your team. And so my whole thing was always just to, if I wasn't getting picked, you know, to be the second one in the second group getting picked. And then at some point, you know, to be in that first tier getting picked, to be out there playing with those guys. And so, you know, you kind of learn to wait your time, to be patient, to not, you know, allow learning curves to get the best of you. And then, you know, when your opportunity comes, and then now you're a part of, you know, a successful group of people, or you're a part of those teams, and you're having success, you know.
When did you start to, or did you ever, were you a standout in middle school or junior high or high school? And if so, when did you start to realize that maybe it's rough when I'm 14 and I'm playing with 30-year-olds, but when I'm 14 and I'm playing with 14-year-olds, I got this? Did that ever happen in your kind of young athletic career?
Yeah, it did happen. You know, when I still was a small, like, 14, 13-year-old. Like, I wasn't that big of a kid. So when it came to football, you know, I always felt like I was trying to play catch up. Now I knew I was fast, or I had some kind of speed, just because, you know, when I was younger and at my grandma's, she would always send me to the store, and, you know, I would go so fast one day that I'll start getting out stopwatches. And I tell this story like at the Hall of Fame banquet, or, you know, when I'm doing interviews or public speaking, I always tell that story. Well, you know, my grandma, they couldn't believe I was running so fast that they got out stopwatches, and every time they needed somebody to go to the store, which was like about, you know, 400, 600 meters away, and they'd definitely say, Jonathan, come here, when you go to the store, everybody got the stopwatch. As soon as I take off, there started, I run down there, and I knew they was timing me, right? So at this point, I was like, okay, they're timing me and everything.
What age is this?
I'm a little bit younger, probably like, you know, fifth grade going to sixth grade, somewhere around there. But I knew I was fast because, you know, I would come home and nobody would believe me. You know, they like, no, you didn't go to the store, but then here it is, I got all these groceries. You know, so you can't really say, you know, I didn't go, because I mean nobody was bringing me the groceries. No, I'll just run down there, run back, and then I think that's whenever, you know, most people in my family knew I was talented, but me at the same time, I still didn't know, like, you know, my talent levels yet. I was just being a kid, pretty much.
Do you think also maybe you weren't realizing your talents? Because again, you're competing with. Is your brother older?
Brother's younger.
Your brother's younger. Okay,
yeah.
But you're competing. You got a brother that's a standout athlete, and then you are competing with older people. So in terms of your day-to-day experiences with peers who are more advanced than you are, you know, you're just hanging in there having a tough time. But once the playing field gets leveled, you know, all of a sudden you can start to stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
So when it came to the running, I always stood out. Of course, I didn't know the opportunities that came with running. You know, I just was out there having fun, being a kid. When it came to other sports, I always had maybe more of a challenge, just because I wasn't the biggest kid. And I think I kind of just got a late start, you know, but I don't think I really started finding myself until later on, you know, down the road. I mean, I did middle school sports and everything, but the truth is, I mean, you know, I think whenever you're young, you're trying to find your identity, you know, and at that point, I was probably not hanging around the best crowds that I could hang around with, which, you know, it's okay. I mean, at that, you know, I'd rather it been at a young age trying to find who I was and everything than being older trying to find who I am and making the same mistakes. And so, you know, at a young age, I mean, it's out there. I made some mistakes, but I think we all go through that part where we try to find ourselves and, you know, figure out who we are. And so, you know, I didn't do sports a lot because I was doing sports and then I'd be like in, you know, some kind of after school suspension deal. And then I have to, you know, I come back and I'll be there for like the last of the championships. And so, you know, I missed a lot of time there, but it also, just made me grow up too. Understanding that, maybe that wasn't the best part, or as far as what I was given, in what they call the streets, just being honest, that wasn't the best thing for me. And so I think when I really realized that I had an opportunity to, be really good at running, I believe it was like my freshman year in high school. I had a lot of success that year. I still was on the B team for football. I had a lot of success in track and field that year.
What distances were you running in track?
Well, so before I moved up, I was a 2 mile in middle school. I was like a 2 mile. I could run a 2 mile, 1 mile, cross country, 800. I mean, I could pretty much run everything. Pretty much whatever I needed to run, I can do. But it comes before we get back to the high school part where I really found me. I would tell you, I've studied, and I know we're gonna get to the coaching part later on, so I'm not gonna get too much into it. But I've studied a lot of foreign coaches and programs, and I realized like at a young age, the really great athletes actually do a lot of running when they're younger, and they develop a lot differently than what athletes do when they're older. So when I was young, I didn't even know it, but all the running I was doing, from the Boys and Girls Club home, or missing the buses after school, running home, not intentionally, but I was training. And I didn't even know I was doing that, but I was putting miles in then, and it took me like all the way until now to realize what I was doing then in order to make me also have success later on. Because, I mean, there's no way that without doing any of that at a young age, I would have had this kind of success on this level. But I just believe that, what I felt was playing was actually training.
No, it's interesting you say that, and I'm thinking too that does make sense to me. The younger my age, the more I introduced a certain type of activity. If I haven't been on the planet that long and I'm doing this activity for a little bit relative to the amount of time I've been here, that's a big portion of my life. Mm-hmm. So at a young age for you, a big portion of your life had been spent training, and it makes sense to me that down the road that pays benefits. Here's a question for you, though. If that was more formal training, if that was, and I've seen it with you, I've seen what track coaches will do to 7-8-year-olds on a 400-meter track and have them running 400s in tears. Mm-hmm. If it was that type of environment versus just having fun running to the grocery store or trying to get to school on time or just doing what you needed to do to run that happened to be training, do you think you would have stuck with it?
I think there's a lot of pressure on these kids nowadays. Everybody believe their son, daughter, family member is going to be the next superstar, And so too many times it's not that, I think why kids are not having fun is because of the pressure. Mm-hmm. You can't be a kid anymore to where you can just go out there and enjoy sports, and multiple sports at that. I mean, everything's so specialized now to where, if you're a baseball player, you're playing more than Major League Baseball players playing a year, and you're not even getting paid for it.
Right.
Yep. And so you're having like these professional careers, and kids are getting burnt out because, they're getting the pressure from the parents, they're getting the pressure from their peers, they're getting the pressure from their coaches. And sometimes it's hard to enjoy, stuff that you just want to be a kid and do whenever you have all this pressure coming on to you from everybody.
No, yeah, and it's funny, you got into something there about single sports versus dual sports, and I know through high school, I think you did football and track all 4 years, mm-hmm. and I was going to ask you if you ever felt torn between the two, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you might have stood out more as a football player in high school than you did as a track star. Is that right?
Well, yeah, so I was going to come back to what kind of happened. So back to freshman year in high school, I was actually a really, I mean, at that point, not knowing, but already like a great runner. But I'm just not. I'm a very humble guy, and I didn't even know better. But yeah, I was my freshman year. I was on the football team. I was on a B team. But one thing I learned growing up, man, is that whenever you're gonna have success, like and you win championships, or you achieve your goals, like you're gonna be tested in so many ways. And a lot of times people, they get tested and then they just want to, throw in the white flag. A lot of times we get tested and we feel like it's a defeat. But I've always looked at it as, okay, if I have these goals, but I know in order to achieve it, to achieve these goals, it's gonna make me, go through something that most people would never have to go through pertaining, what I'm trying to achieve. So, maybe as an athlete, we got to go to school too and pass, or as an athlete, you gotta give up, sometimes your social life or other things that most people would probably never have to. But you gotta understand too, though, in order to become great or to achieving those things, like you're gonna be tested. It's gonna beat you in the ground. It's gonna make sure that, okay, if you're gonna go out here and you're gonna win, are you gonna reach these goals? You're gonna go through something to make sure that you really want it.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but when you're going through it, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is a test I have to pass. It feels like something incredibly unfair, like it's going to derail me from my goals. And I get back that it doesn't feel fair, but it's not as clean as, oh, well, this is a test I have to get through. You tell me if I'm wrong. Or as you went through trials and hardships, did it feel like, oh, this is a test I got to pass? Or were you struggling with stuff, not knowing if I'm going to get through it or not, but then there was some level of perseverance that kept you going forward?
Well, I always believe that no matter what, and I tell people this all the time, that if you have a goal, excuse me, if you have a goal, if you're gonna have any kind of success, it doesn't matter if it's sports, just relationships or school, whatever. You're gonna go through things, and sometimes you can't even explain it. It may just be something out of totally left field that hits you right at the moment, you're about to have are accomplished, like your biggest dreams and stuff. It could be something that doesn't even have to do with, what you're training for. It's just obstacles, But I believe in like law of attraction, what you put out into the universe, you get back. And a lot of times when you got a lot of good energy going on and great stuff going for you, you're going to have something that's going to try to derail you from that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get focused on those little small things, which in turn can be big and significant, but you cannot allow it to deter you away from, your focus. And then you always got to stay, mindful of what your goal is. And then you got to have a purpose. Sorry. You got to have a purpose behind it. Too many times we have a goal, but what is our purpose for the goal? It's easier to give up on goals and stuff when there's no purpose behind it. And I always tell people that, like, you got to have a purpose, and your purpose should be the thing that drives you in order to succeed. At a young age, I love my grandma, love my family. She was like a mom to me. We lost her at a very young age, but she was my purpose. My family was my purpose. And so every time I went out there and trained, it was never about me. I could have never. You can't accomplish the things that I accomplished on that level without having a crazy purpose behind it. It's almost like impossible to do, because it's such a big, thing that you're taking on. And I mean, it's so much weight on your shoulders, and then when you get there, it's even harder to stay on top. And so with me, my thing was, okay, I'm on a B team football team. Well, you know what? The one thing that I learned how to do between my freshman year and sophomore year is I got this crazy drive. Like, I always knew how to work, but there was like a crazy work ethic that just got installed into me. And I knew from that day on, there was some write-ups in the paper, I'm too small, I'm not a great athlete, my upbringing. And then, I always said that I would never allow anyone to dictate my future or the outcome of my life again. And so what I did then was took control of what I can control, and that's my life.
And you're 14 at this 15, right?
Yeah, I'm very young. Yeah, at that time I am. But at that time I knew that anything that I ever put my mind out to achieve, I would always achieve, no matter what it was. And I didn't even know what that really meant being so young, and that's why they say experience is everything, knowledge is everything. Because, the older we get, it's like, wow, if I would have known, what I know now, I mean, knowledge is crazy. And so I totally get it now. But between my freshman year and sophomore year, I just, mom couldn't, there wasn't enough cars to drive us everywhere. So I hit the road. I run up there to the facility. I do my weights. I run back home. I run back up again,
So say that again. You're saying you couldn't get transportation to the gym in the off season.
Yeah.
So you're running to the gym to do your workouts, and then you're running home, and that's just your mode of transportation.
That's my transportation right there. But it was also my, but I knew I would benefit from it too. And it'd get to a point where even my brother would come out. Like, he'd come out and run with me, and I would run away from him. I would pull away from him, because it was always like, if I was training with somebody, if you could train with me, then that means you could keep up with me, and when it's time for like games and performance and all that. And so my whole motto was always, if you train with me, then I'm gonna try to, as an athlete mentality, I'm gonna try to beat you into the ground. I didn't want nobody to be able to train with me, because then I knew that if that person could, then there's probably other people who could as well. But if you could not train with me, then I knew I pretty much had an advantage too. And so I came back after my sophomore year, after all that work, and I made the JV team. So I went from the freshman second team, our third team, the freshman third team, to making a JV first team. And that was just because of the work ethic that I had in the summertime. And I didn't even know I got that big. Sometimes you lift weights and you really don't know how big you are, or how fast you've gotten, until somebody says it. And then all of a sudden you up next to other athletes and everything, and you're like the same size. And it's like, oh, I guess I have, put on some muscle and everything. So I got my opportunity to be on the JV team. I didn't start, but then me and a guy got hurt in the same game. Coach them said, okay, Jay, you're starting. I started that game. He came back, and that was it. They said Jonathan started, and
so got a first stringer got hurt.
Yeah.
He got off the field. You got put in his place.
Exactly.
And you never got it back.
He never got it back.
Kept it. Yep.
I kept it, and then after that I made varsity team, and did well on that level. Became a captain my senior year. Had a lot of success. Made all district teams. Just became a leader. So I done went from, this guy who was on the third string to almost like commanding the whole team, as far as, being that leader and that driving force that we needed. So being a captain, it meant a lot, not in the sense, I made the captain, but just knowing the work, it took to get there. But then not just performing at a high level in one sport, but also coming back and pretty much taking over like the world in track and field.
Well, that's what's interesting, because I wrote down, team builder, because that's just something, knowing you for a long time now, you are a team builder. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, because I think in your, one of your businesses right now, that's actually something you're doing in a new form, is mm-hmm. building a team. But that's what I was getting ready to ask. So I know the story of, B squad to team captain in 4 years in football, which I didn't know that story before. And I'm curious how we get from there to Hall of Fame at Tech and the U.S. Olympics running the 800.
Well, so it goes back to that freshman year I ran, and, I made, like, I guess it was at the time, I'm like, it's 21 and under or something. So I had qualified for these championships, and I came up to North Texas and didn't. And, I didn't make the team or anything, but it was a wake-up call. And that night I was going back with my coach. And, at this point, I mean, I know it may sound crazy, but I didn't really know a lot about colleges and, what was out there. Remember, at this time, we don't have like 50, over 50 channels to look at. If something comes on, it's the little knob turning or whatever, how we used to do the channels and everything. And so, growing up, how we grew up, I mean, Mom did everything she could, and very proud of her, love her for it, provided for us as best as she could. But, we didn't even know what college was, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just we didn't know. And so we're coming back from Denton after this meet, and coach is telling me. So
there's a running meet. What year? Exactly. How old are you at this point?
I'm like 15.
So this is still 15, 16. Around freshman, sophomore year. There's a track meet that you went to try to make a team. Yeah. And you didn't make the team.
Right.
And you're heading back with the coach.
Right.
All right.
And so coach is saying, do you realize you got an opportunity to go to college? Do you realize you got an opportunity to run? Do you know what you just did? And I'm sitting here not really understanding the magnitude of what I just did. Even going to a meet like that, you it has a lot of there's a lot of great athletes there. Most athletes that go there, a lot of them do go to college, but I didn't notice at the time. I'm just once again, having fun doing what I'm loving doing, and that's it. Not really thinking about the opportunities that come with it, but then going back, he just put a lot of this in my ear. College, and you got an opportunity to go to school, get a scholarship, get a degree. And so now I'm going home back that day, and I'm just thinking, college, well, if it's the opportunity to allow me to, change my future and my family, future and outcomes, then it's something I'm gonna look into. But still at the time, also just being a athlete in high school, I just love sports. I love being around my teammates. I love being around my coaches. I learned at a young age, work ethic and discipline. My mom, I think having us get up on the weekends and cutting the yards and washing clothes and just, having us do all our chores for a few hours on the weekends, every weekend, that's installing discipline. That's installing structure, organization. Those are things you don't really think about, when you're growing up or anything. You don't understand the significance of all this until you get older. And then it's like, that's where that structure comes from. That's where the organization comes from. Well, why am I so driven? Why am I so disciplined? But these things happen at a very young age that's installing us. And then, how we go and take it when we get older. I always tell people, man, how we take what we learned when we was young and how we go about it every day will ultimately dictate our future. And so I always tell people, I say, I see the future. They're like, no, how can you see the future? I feel like I'm a psychic, because I know what I'm going to do before I accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to make the Olympic team when I was in high school. I knew I was going to, graduate from college when I did. I knew when I was going to break the state record. I knew when I was going to win national championships. I knew when I was going to win the Olympic trials. I used to call my mom before big meets, and I tell her ahead of time. I say, Mom, look, this is for you today. Happy Mother's Day. Love you. I'm about to go out here and win.
Before the race.
Before. I was signing autographs in high school because I knew what I was going to do. I got write-ups and everything. And then I knew I knew there was going to be a purpose and a plan for me eventually one day once I got done with everything that I did with the track career. But going back before we get ahead, to the coaching stuff, once I started...
Yeah, you just listed like 5 things you did that are reserved for the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the people who ever lace up shoes. Right. And so, man, take any one of those and break it down. I know the Olympic trial story. I want to hear that one. Mm-hmm. I know what happened when the gun blew. Mm-hmm. It was Beijing, right? Mm-hmm. I know that story. But, man, you just hit national championships, state championships, Olympic trials, competing in the Olympics. Man, for the 99.9999% of us that don't know what that's like, break some of that down for us.
Well, I always told myself growing up, I never wanted to be a part, like, I always wanted to be almost like an outsider. What everybody thought was unachievable, I wanted to achieve. What everybody thought was that no one could do, I knew I can do. And so I would say my first big memory, because I get that a lot. Well, what races, stand out to you the most? Which one is the most important? I always say I think some of them are like equally important, but because they were all as significant as one another, but there was at different times in my life. And so, like when I won the state championship and broke the state record, that was probably one of the.
So what year is that? Your high school record?
High school.
What year is this?
Record.
What distance?
So this when I broke so I won the national championship as a junior. I lost the state championship and I came back. That same year in the summer. It was like a few weeks later. Then I won a national championship. So I won 2 national championships as a junior, coming back into my high school year.
And what were you running?
400, 800.
The 400.
Okay. And then, believe it or not, I ran on the 4x1 too at state meet. So I ran on the 4x1 at state, in the same spikes, and I just walked down to the finish line, or to the other end, and then I walked back down to run the 800. But I think that warmed me up. But it was one of those things where we needed points. And I knew that I have good speed. You know, I'm strong. I have a football background. Probably not your natural 800-meter build or frame. I mean, I can't. I mean, I don't know. I don't even think I know another running back who ran the 800. And I trained like a football guy, and my mentality was like a football guy. And so when I came out there and ran, you know, I wasn't gonna run soft. You know, I mean, I was a leader of a football team, and so can you imagine, you know, the track team how we wore, you know.
I'm just taking. Sorry, this is about you, but I'm going right back to a moment before you had me do a race.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a lot older when I'm doing this stuff, but you were teaching me about the benefits of elbows on the inside lanes around the curve. So no, I know how. I can imagine how you ran when it was your turn. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then so I have all the success on a high school level, and you know, I tell you what about success, man, is when you start having success, I mean, you want more of it. You know, like I don't think there's anything more, you know, satisfying than success, especially when you have goals. And so, and it doesn't matter what you do. And I'm just talking about me. Other people may say, you know, well, my success is family. My success is career. My success is, you know, whatever it is. Well, mine was an athlete. I mean, I was an athlete, and I wanted to be the best athlete that there ever was. And so, you know, when I left the high school level, I believe I left as, you know, in Texas, I'm still the greatest athlete to ever do it for the 800 in our century. And so when I look back at that, some stuff for me is hard to believe. And I always tell people I just worked hard. I did it for me and my teammates, for my community, for my sisters, for my family. You know, it was, and that's why I say it was never about me, man. You can't do something of that magnitude and it just be about you, because the weight and everything that comes with it and the consistency that you have to have is, I mean, it's a lot. You know, and it would break you down. And if you don't have that kind of support behind you, if you don't have that purpose, then, you know, it would be very hard to continue with that kind of success. Mm-hmm. And so when I got out of high school after winning 3, you know, national championships and state championship, broke the record, I knew I was going to be on a tear. You know, when I chose to go to Texas Tech, I chose to go to Texas Tech so we could become a dominant force in the Big 12. You know, there was powerhouses out there that wanted me to go. I didn't even realize it, but Texas Tech was like almost our last in the Big 12. You know, Coach Kidley, though, I got the most respect for him. This was my college coach. He's still the coach there, the longest tenured coach at Texas Tech to this day. But you know, he was already a proven champion. He won 29 NCAA championships on the Division II level with ACU, and so I knew he could win. I didn't care if he didn't win on a Division I level. The only thing that mattered to me is he was a proven winner.
He knew how to win.
He knew how to win, and he was from a small country town like me, you know. And so to West Texas, fellas going up there to Tech, I felt like we could open up the doors and, you know, have new beginnings up there, and we could create a powerhouse. And so when I got there, you know, I think a lot of the seniors and, you know, some of the upper class didn't really like it, but, you know, I was there to win, you know, and we was going to become winners because we already learned how to win on a high school level. Mm-hmm. You know, at this time, we didn't won state championships. We didn't won national championships. We didn't broke every record out there. And so the leadership was already there. I learned that from football, you know, just my upbringing. So when I got to Tech, I knew that was it.
So now, you didn't show up playing the part of the rookie. You didn't show up apologizing for being new. You showed up as Jonathan Johnson, champion. I'm here to build a powerhouse and to win.
Oh, you know it. And a lot of people had a problem with that.
I bet.
But for me, I mean, I'm a champion, so I didn't care.
How'd your coach manage that? Because there's tension in the ranks there. How'd your coach manage that?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes he was new to the program too, and he knew everybody's been there. Sometimes you gotta allow, you know, for everything to take its course. And so I think he kind of just stayed out the way. He guided us. He didn't let anything get too crazy, you know, as far as tension and stuff, but he also knew that he had some young champions here now. And so he was going to allow us to, you know, fill our role in and become who we need to become. And I think, you know, at that point, he's probably looking for leadership. He's probably, you know, you're looking for a change in the culture around there. You're looking for leaders to come in and to lead your team, and no more following and stuff. And I'm not saying that anybody that was being followers or anything. I'm just saying that we have already built championships, and so we already knew how to go in there and to get everybody to work at the same level now, and it's nothing. I always tell people, even my teammates, I always say, all of us are leaders. The one thing I'm not gonna say I hate, but I'm like, man, why do we always gotta be followers? Why do you, even if you're in a work environment, why do you have to be a follower? Even if you clock it in 9 to 5, so what? Like, go out there, be a leader, take some responsibility, and then you may find yourself moving up. But too many times, people feel like they're in you got leaders and you got they feel like they gotta be in a follower position. But I'm always like, no, hey, we're on the same team. And I tell my athletes this now, and I tell my teammates that too. No, we could all be leaders. None of us got to follow. Matter of fact, I'd rather have like 12 leaders that go with me instead of 20 followers. Because when you have leaders on the team, man, you know how to you learn to win. It's contagious. Your work ethic is different. You going if it's 103 degrees out there and you got to sweat and you put it all out and you got like 5 several reps left and you got to grind it out. Well, you got a whole bunch of leaders out there. Y'all gonna talk. Y'all gonna get each other hyped up. You gonna go out there. You gonna work together, and then you gonna all fall and pass out together when all those reps are done. You get you some followers out there. You may get out there, have you a couple of good reps. The other leader have a few good reps or whatever, and y'all doing what y'all have to. But then those followers, it start getting tough and everything. Now the excuses come. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden, y'all having great workouts, but everybody not having great workouts. Yep. And you can never win anything as a team when it's like that. Right. Everybody got to be on the same page. And you all got to have the same goal. And then the most important thing I think that we forget sometimes is, even though you are, I say, be leaders and everything, you still have to know your role on the team.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
Well, what I mean by that is, it's everybody's not going to be the president of the company, but it doesn't mean that just because you're an assistant to maybe somebody on the lower end that you can't, do well at your job.
So when you're running at Tech, here's what I'm trying to understand. When you're running at Tech, are you accepting that even though you're a leader, it's not your turn to be president? Or are you saying, hey, boys, the president's here and everybody needs to get in line?
Nah, hey, the president definitely showed up.
All right, there you go.
And
all right.
I mean, but that's just who I am, man. I know that this is who I'm supposed to be, and no, I was there to build a championship. Like there was not going to be any more losing and not losing, but just and not even disappointments or anything, because it's not disappointments. I mean, when you have to give them your all, you give them your all. But I just think, we were just going to bring something different to the table. That's what I would say.
So let's start talking about the results.
Yeah, so the results. So my freshman year, I ran fastest time by American freshman in our
Are you doing
history.
Sorry, are you doing just the 800 at this point?
I'm running the 400, 800 4x4s.
Okay.
I didn't really run the 400 a lot. I trained for the 800, but then I came down. I always ran the 4x4s. I could split like 44 point on the relay, so it was a lot of fun, But the workouts, man, like
hold on, just real quick for the non-runners, explain what you just said.
Which part of it?
Just give your time again in the distance.
Oh, so on the 400s, my freshman year I ran 1:45, a minute 45 in the 800.
And the half mile, 1 minute 45 seconds.
Yeah. And
but give me your split on the 400.
On the 400, my split is 44 seconds, 44 point.
So you're going a quarter mile.
Yeah.
In 44 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted everybody who was listening that may not know what that means to just look it up, if nothing else, if you're not already impressed. But go ahead. I'm sorry for
no problem.
The detour.
And so I had some success my freshman year, but it wasn't everything I wanted to achieve. And the thing is, like, I'm big on team. I never done anything for me, or I never been selfish, or even though I'm a leader and all this, and I said, okay, I'm coming in and it's time for me to take over this team and everything, I'm not selfish. I would do anything for my teammates first, and I put them first. That's why here in a second when we get to the whole pro thing, that's why I came back to school. But yeah, I had success my freshman year, going into my sophomore year. I was really hungry. I felt like I could have won nationals that year. It was a big year. I had won the Big 12 as a freshman, some other championships, and then I came back my sophomore year, won another championship. But then I got to nationals and I lost by 1,000th of a second. 1,000th of a second, and I tell you what, that changed my life.
How?
People will say the Olympics changed my life. That changed my life because that was the most hurtful race I ever lost in my whole entire life. Like I worked for everything, but that was the one. I mean, when you lose 1,000 of a second, that's like a blink, like blink, and then you'll know what 1,000 of a second is. Like I lost a national championship by that much, and then I go back and the next week. The same guy who beat me, I knew he couldn't beat me, but I ended up racing this guy again at the championships. I get third at the U.S. championships and make the team. But the guy never beat me again, but it woke me up. It put a taste in my mouth that I never felt before. And I done lost races, I hadn't always won championships. I done lost races, but I never lost in that fashion.
So let me ask you this. When you lost that race, did you believe that you could have done something differently to have won, whether that was training, whether that was your strategy for the race? Because if I hear you right, what I hear is that guy wasn't better than me. He just finished before I did, as opposed to somebody who's better than me beats me. I remember trailing you behind the track a number of times. Thinking like, okay, I'm running behind Jonathan Johnson. This is not a race, right? So if you know somebody's better than you, it's kind of one thing. The ones that haunt us, though, or that I would think haunt you are, that guy's not better than me. He just finished ahead of me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Is that what it was, or?
Yes, it was like that. Well, it was one of those races where anytime I was in a race, most people were just going to set on me in the 800.
Yep.
Like, they're not going to take it out. So I took it out, and I came through the first lap in front. I came through the 600 in the front. I came through the 700 at the front. And then, like, the last 75 meters, this guy comes up. And I'm like, oh, now you want to race. I done all the work on the track that took y'all around on a fast pace.
Coasting, yep.
And all of a sudden, now you want to come on and race me now. And that's the thing I always say, like, man, it's easy to get out and set on people, but the hardest thing to do is the way that I always ran that race. I was a front runner. It's like drafting. Like, most people who lead from the front don't win.
Right.
But I won like that, hundreds and hundreds of races. And so when he beat me, I just didn't have enough time to react.
Right.
He passed me up and within 75 meters, I came back, but then it was over. And then I'm sitting here like, my name goes up on a Jumbotron. His name come up. I say we are tied, and all of a sudden they say that he won. Oh, man, you talking about hurt? Oh, my gosh. Getting second place to him, oh, man, that was bad. And then that's really, I came back and I told myself, it was an Olympic year, and I knew that, after that race that I was going to be on a tear the next year. And I don't even think the only time I had lost was at the Olympic trials that year. Other than that, when I say I was on a tear, I was on a tear.
Yeah, so connect those dots for me now.
Oh, well, so come back my freshman year, junior year now. So it's my junior year, and it's an Olympic year, but the thing is, you got Big 12 championships, you got the Olympic trials, you got the national championships, and I don't know. I just felt good that year. Early on, I had beat Bernard Lagarde at the Sacramento relays, and so I knew I was running well early on. But I didn't know. I didn't know, like, you never, if you ain't never won an Olympic trials, you don't really know until you know.
Was that your junior? Because you had a legendary year.
Yeah.
I mean, you made history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the junior year?
It was my junior year.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
So that year, I went out and, I worked my tail off, the first few years. And I always tell people, like, it's not, they say, okay, when did you start training for the Olympics? And they'd be like, oh, like 6 months ago, 9 months ago. I'm like, man, I've been training for Olympics for like years, high school, all those times, all those runs and stuff in the morning time when I was a kid. all those high school runs and, grinding, all those, the years that I spent in college, I mean, you don't get that strong in a year.
Right.
In order to build up that aerobic capacity and the lactic acid to toleration that you have for it, and the muscles and stuff that you have, I mean, that takes years and years and years of training.
Mm-hmm.
And so by that time, I'm strong. I'm a smart racer. I know I could dominate on this level. That's my mindset. And I was ticked off from nationals. And when I say ticked off, I mean every time I trained, I had that race on my mind. But then again, I also I should have bought my goals paper, but I had wrote goals down like a couple of years before, and it had my grandma on there and my family, and it had that I was gonna be at the Olympic Games, and I had every single thing I was gonna do, and I always told myself, if you have a goal, then if you do the right things, you can achieve them. So I just went to work and I had a lot of success. Came around, won the Big 12 championships, went to nationals, got some revenge at nationals, and won the national championships. And then here comes the Olympic trials.
So
but
Big 12 champion.
Big 12 champion, national champion. Yeah.
Here come the trials.
And here come the trials, and it's never been done before. Like when I won the Olympic trials, I was only the third person in the history to win all three big a conference championship, national championship, and then to actually win the Olympic trials too. But I knew going into there, I had no fear. Like I was like, it's time for things to change, the gardens to change, and I knew what they've been running like the years before at these championships, which I thought it was almost like a disrespect to, the U.S. running, because sometimes we're slow. You should never be able to make a team with a 147.
So you're saying guys were making the Olympic team with times that weren't competitive on the global stage. Go ahead.
I know, but they were making. I don't know if it was what they ran in the 2000 trials, but I know years before that, like as far as the U.S. champs and things like that, they weren't that fast.
All right.
And so, me, I had a different plan. We go out in 50 seconds, boom, come back 54, and it was gonna be a fast race. So it didn't matter. To give myself the best opportunity, I cannot get out and make it a slow race, and then everybody's in the race. And so my whole thing was, I'm going to get out, and we're going to see, at this time a young man, but we're going to see if these big man, these man, if they want to see the young man. And so I went out of it.
Are you the youngest on the blocks?
Man, I was the youngest in there. Yeah. I was the youngest at that time. But I knew I had a big heart, and I knew I had fight. I mean, I've been fighting my whole entire life. I've been, I've been disciplined, and I put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
When you put the work in,
mm-hmm.
you know what you're going to do before you go out there. I always tell people, hey, you know what you're going to do before you actually go do it.
If you did, well, number one, if you did the work, that's true. But I think, too, if you didn't do the work, that, and you carry that. And running business doesn't matter. If you did the work, that's a good feeling when you're standing there.
Exactly.
If you didn't do it, that's a crappy feeling when you're standing there. So, sorry, go ahead. I love this. Go ahead.
So
dude, you're firing me up right now.
Man, I'm telling you, you feel like going back out there and doing it, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Maybe put a relay together.
Keep going.
So I get to the trials, and I have like these nerves, and my mom and my family is there, and like I tell you, I know what I'm gonna do something. So I tell my mom the day before, I'm like, Ma, I love you, and I'm about to go out here and win the trials. Like I already knew, like it's just what you know. And there was no way I was gonna come out of that race and not win it, because that's what I set myself out to do. Back when I was a senior in high school, I knew I was gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
I put the work in to do it. I've overcame all the obstacles and challenges that comes with it. I've been consistent. I sweated, and at the end of the track, or at the end of a practice, laid on the track for 20 minutes, wondering out of my mind, why am I doing this? And so I made the ultimate sacrifices that you have to make in order to be successful. And a lot of times people don't do that. Are you willing to put yourself through the mental and physical and emotional part in order to achieve, the results that you want to get?
And so, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, we're at the trials, and
But so you're standing on the start line knowing you had done everything necessary and then some. You knew, and don't let me put words in your mouth, you knew you did everything or more than anybody else that was up there when you're standing on that line. That's what you know when you're standing there getting ready to go, right?
Yep. And I believe that's what all great athletes believe, is that you're doing everything better, or doing, working harder or smarter than the other athletes.
Yep.
But I knew there was no way that anybody was outworking me
Yep.
in the US. And that's how I always trained. So there's something about perfection when you're talking about perfecting your race, and then there's something about also, well, I'm gonna come back to that. So the perfection part is, in order to perfect your race, you have to be imperfect, right? And so when you are imperfect, that's when you learn.
Got it. Yeah, you gotta be vulnerable if you're gonna grow. Yeah, got it.
Exactly.
Yeah, got it.
So I would learn from everything that I've done, all the mistakes that I made.
Yep.
Even like just timing, eating, sleeping, everything. And so by being imperfect, I actually learned how to perfect my race.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so once I got there, I knew like I was gonna run a perfect race. I knew I was prepared. I've done it numerous of times. I've done it on the track before I got there. The times don't lie. Your effort, it doesn't lie. A lot of times, when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that on that day, if somebody's gonna beat me, they're gonna have to run a world record, because if they would have ran a world record that day, I would have ran a world record with them.
Right.
And it was just one of those things. Like, no, if you come here, then it's gonna be the race of your life, the fight of your life.
Yep.
And it's not always you get to go back to the Olympic trials or even the Olympics. I mean, it's very, very challenging.
So we're talking about confidence, and you're feeling ready to go. And I wonder how many people listening to this are getting mad, like, just tell the damn story. But I'm curious, something with you, with an Olympian and with Jonathan Johnson, or maybe with Olympians in general. But is there, because you just brought up something to me that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole life is coming down to a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's on the line. Every step matters.
Mm-hmm.
Every choice matters. It rings out for the rest of your life. There's been one road here, and there's no road back. Do you feel that when you're standing there, or is it blank mind, pure confidence, I'm ready to go?
No, I think every athlete feels something. You're gonna feel that tingle and the nerves that comes with it. No, I was definitely nervous. And that's the only thing I hate about the trials is you run one race, and the prelims, semis, and finals. And then you gotta wait a day before the finals. And so I was nervous, really nervous. But at that, I learned to control my emotions, though, because sometimes you can get very, very emotional, and it has a negative effect on you. So I learned how to control my emotions to where I would get like really, really high, but not too high to where it would take over me.
Yep.
And so I go back to the track, but it's like I said, man, like you don't ever, when you training, you don't ever try to do anything outside of what you've been doing. No matter what the race is, people, they could have went out in 45 seconds, but you don't go out in 45 seconds. They could have went out in 54, but you don't go out in 54 because, it's we watch film, you know what all your competitors are running, their times, their strong, their strengths, if they are 4.8, or if they're an 8 miler.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty much what they're gonna run. It's not like they're gonna come out there and all of a sudden run like 3-4 seconds faster,
Right.
And so we knew where my competitor was at, but we also knew where I was at as well.
Right.
And then it was just, the rest was just, perfecting my training and going out there and running the perfect race.
Which you did.
Yeah. And that's why I say you gotta be coachable. You gotta be disciplined. And you gotta and criticism, man. You gotta be able to take that too, because it's gonna come. But I was willing to do all of the above, and the success came with it. But I ran the, and the thing is that with that race is, most races that from what I experienced is, I'm really nervous, but then when the gun starts, everything gets silent. All of a sudden, you don't hear anything. You don't hear anything. You don't you don't really see anything. You kind of just like black out in a way, you know.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you're just like in this crazy zone, and most of the times, you know, it's just perfecting your race. You know, there's a lot going on the track that we don't even know about, you know, and especially when you can get inside each other lanes, or you're running on the same lanes, boxing in, and you know, people. I mean, people they hit you too. Been a young man at the time, man, running against those older guys, like they show me a little love sometimes with the elbows and everything, but it was okay though. I got out front and I stayed out of trouble, and then most of the times what happens is, you know, coming around that last curve, the audience and the fans and stuff will start coming back into your head. So all of a sudden that crowd that went silent is back now, and so that's like that last little energy that you
And you're
need.
starting to feel a little lift. Okay.
Yeah, and then it's just like you know, I mean, you're right there, and it's just holding them off, you know. And but I knew I was gonna win. I knew they was gonna give me a great effort, but you know, I ran my race. I think some of those guys didn't run their race, you know, and I ran mine, and it allowed me to, you know, be sitting here now talking about being an Olympian.
Right.
But that was a lot of fun, and then I went on to the Olympic trials, and you know, I had some really good races. I think just being young though, probably not having enough experience at the time, probably played a little factor against me. But you know, my whole goal was to make it to the Olympics, and that's what I did. And you know, I think that's a win-win situation itself.
There's no question. I mean, and you are a very, very humble guy, and I know that about you. And I also know the competitor, Jonathan. I know Coach Jonathan better, but I know the competitor, Jonathan. But I mean, do you ever just sit and think about how amazing it is to call yourself an Olympian, or no? I mean, because it's the 0.0000001%, and that's compared to the people who even ever tried.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you ever just think about that, or?
Yeah, I think about it. I mean, sometimes I'm in awe myself. You know, like, how's that achievable? But then again, I always, anything that I do in life, I tell you that I want it to be, you know, I want to be a part of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to be average, and it's not to take away from anybody or what anyone else does, but me personally, I don't want to live an average life. You know, I want to have more than that, and if I have to work for it, and you know, wake up at whatever time in the morning to get to my goals and my dreams, then that's what I'm gonna do. You know, and my thing is, man, and I think it's because when I was young, I always had people tell me that I couldn't do stuff. You know, growing up, you're only gonna give you a few options. You know, dead or in jail. I'm just like, that's really not a really good option, right? But reality of it is, like, we all grow up differently. We all have our own, you know, life challenges and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess mine was just that. You know, I just grew up a little differently, and you know, but I got tired of people telling me what I could and could not do. And then
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and then from there, I just always said whatever I set myself out to achieve, I was going to do.
Yeah, because we skipped over something along the way that I know was real important, and it goes back to driving back from that first track meet when you talked to your coach about the opportunity that you could go to college.
Mm.
So in the middle of all the athletic accomplishments we just got over, to include achieving the highest honor anybody can achieve, you also did graduate college.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Which I know that was a big deal.
I did. And for me, that was most important. I know we talk a lot about athletics, but honestly, the you know, as an athlete growing up in high school and college, you're a student athlete.
Yep.
You know, the student part always comes first because that's the most important thing. And until you turn pro and you start making money, then that's what it is. But it was important to me. You know, I'm the first, you know, graduate out of my family. I made a promise to my mom once I went to college that, you know, I was gonna finish my degree.
Yep.
I didn't understand how challenging and, you know, school would be for me, but it was a challenge. But again, I don't know how to give up.
Yep.
You know, I don't think that's like really installed in me. The only thing I know how to do is to keep going and, you know, to make things happen. And if you don't, and the beautiful thing about this is most of us don't know anything from anything when we're born, but all of us can learn, you
Mhm.
know? And so I always tell myself, you know what? I may not necessarily understand, some of the stuff that goes on in this life or whatever, but what I can do is to go through what I need to understand it,
Mhm.
and so I love, you know, being on the other end of it. Oh, you're not supposed to go to school, and that's what they told me. Like they did a whole article on me out of high school that I wasn't gonna go to school because I didn't even know what an ACT SAT was.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm just being honest, but I didn't know what that was until like my junior senior year, and I didn't pass it by the time I was a senior, and so I had to take a semester off, and I was just like, dang, ACT, SAT, like what in the world is this thing? Man, I didn't know better. But you know what? I knew I wanted to run in college, and I knew that just because I wasn't introduced to it didn't mean that I couldn't like do good on this test.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't know what those tests are. I can tell you what they're not, which are good measures for people.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately one way they use those are not good ways to measure the caliber of a human being, and that's sad. I had my own story with those tests too, but but now is there anything else from the running career of Jonathan you want to hit? Because I want to start switching over to Coach Jonathan and talking about how a lot of these lessons you've learned have translated into you helping other people achieve their goals. But before we go there, anything on your personal athletic life that you want to talk about before we kind of transition?
I would just, I don't know. I just was a kid that, loved sports, and I didn't find out that I really love sports until later on in life. But I don't know. It's just if you're gonna love it, do it. I think a lot of times athletes probably do it because other people want them to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're gonna do it, like just do it because you love it, because you're passionate about it, not because other people think that's what we're supposed to do or whatever. Because a lot of times when you really are passionate about something, like you're gonna put the work in that you need to be successful. But I don't know. I mean, I've had a great career. It allowed me to do what I'm doing now. And man, I mean, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same. I probably do a few things a little different. I probably learned a little bit more about nutrition and, sleep patterns and, some of those things that we really don't pay attention to then. But I think we just have a lot better, science behind it now.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, with that then, let's move over now because, Jonathan, the highest level competitor that you can get to in terms of track, fast forward now, I never knew that guy, but I knew Jonathan. I know Coach Jonathan. So talk to me about the transition from athlete to coach and start to tell me maybe a little bit about your philosophy of coaching, who you're after, what you're wanting to see them achieve, and just kind of how you help people get to where they're going.
All right. So the first thing is, I'm glad that I did, stick with the whole school thing in college, and I did get my degree. I worked hard for it, and I did get my degree and graduate from college. And the reason why I point that out is because, without that, I don't think, the business and the coaching thing would be successful. Because a lot of times people look at, your accomplishments not just as an athlete, but also what you accomplished, in school, and then certifications and stuff like that. And so that helped me, as far as my knowledge on the coaching side. But I got into coaching, it was after so transition from athlete to coach. Well, I don't know, I guess I'm about several years into my pro contract, and I'm over in Europe, and I just feel like I had a calling. Like it was just like, I don't know what was going on, but I'm a young man still, and I still could be running and training. I got a great life in California. I'm out here with Santa Monica Track Club, across the way from where Arnold Schwarzenegger is at, where he lives. And, I'm like, I'm enjoying this life. I mean, it's pretty good as a pro athlete, but
of all the perks that comes with being a pro athlete in Santa Monica, I'm sure bumping into Arnold Schwarzenegger was the highlight of your career. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there were some other things you probably enjoyed.
Yeah. But no, there's a lot of other things I definitely enjoyed. But just having the freedom to do what you love doing,
Yep.
and to wake up doing what you love doing. Uh, but what happened was I was just over in Europe, and someone just told me I had to come back, and things was gonna be different. Now, when I made that transition, it was just like I had to come back. So I come back here, and I pretty much at that point I was gonna take a break and train in Dallas, but I move out towards this way, not really understanding why I'm coming out here first of all, but just understanding that that it's time for me to move on to my next my next thing to do. And so and that's what I would tell people too, like sometimes you gotta know when to walk away as much as you love stuff. Like sometimes you gotta know when it's time to make changes. And being an athlete my whole life, it was pretty scary, and I knew I was gonna have to go through like a couple of hardships and everything before I was able to transition all the way. But I moved out to the Dallas area, and they got a mentorship program at Lifetime Fitness, and so I do like this Olympic mentorship program, and I learned a lot about the business side of training and running a business, etc. And then I started working for the company, still training at this point, getting ready for like some world champs.
Still training as an athlete yourself,
as an athlete,
yeah.
But I did so well, like within that company. I mean, I moved up pretty quick. Like I was bringing in, a lot of money and training a lot of people and doing very, very well. And I had a guy just one day, who I met, who was a mentor of mine now, and he was just like, "Well, why are you doing this for yourself why are you doing this for Lifetime Fitness when you could be doing it for yourself?" And so I'm sitting here like, and me being an athlete, we take chances. And so maybe at the time it wasn't the smartest thing to do, but looking back it was, but probably not as soon as I did it. But as soon as he said it, I was like, why not go out here on my own?
Right.
And so I go out here on my own, but not really understanding that my whole life been structured by other people.
Well, I was going to say, that's the other thing you get as an athlete is you value all the structure and the support that's behind you that maybe you may take it for granted, but you know when it's not there all of a sudden.
So I get out on my own, and then I realize like the real world. It's like all of a sudden like the structure, the organization, all that stuff is gone, and now it's like it's you, and so I get like, I'm starting to work. I'm training some folks, and then there's something about you gotta have recurring clients, and so I don't. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, people like leaving, people are not staying, and so I have like some really like difficult months, getting out on my own, some very, very difficult months. But again, I've started everything from the bottom. I knew what it felt like to be at the bottom and to have to, work your way up. And so as much as I had everything going against me, all the tools and everything that I learned over the years were actually playing like its biggest role at this time. And so I knew, I was gonna have some downtime, things wasn't gonna go as great, but it also meant it didn't mean to give up. It just meant that if you really wanted it, now you're gonna have to like grind for it. You got to get out and work for it. So, I worked, I learned the business. I got some certifications. I had already been doing some camps and working with athletes in my past, but just not ever like fully on. And so when I first got into business, I actually worked with a lot of adults who wanted to run. And so I worked with a lot of adults, and then I kind of moved and got back to my passion where I worked with, youth athletes as well. And so, sorry, y'all, over the years, what happened is
It's a podcast. That's what happens. You're good.
Yeah. So what happened is over the years, though, I started studying like these European coaches, like some great ones, and how the Kenyans grow up, and I started studying how like their training methods, and but I also twisted, got in and put my own little twist to like the speed part plus everything that I knew, and I kind of came up with a different style of training, I guess, and I'm not traditional in how people coach speed. And matter of fact, when people come to me, they're like, oh, you're more of a specialist instead of a coach, because I specialize in speed development. I specialize in development. The kind of athletes that I love coaching, I don't, if I wanted to coach the best athletes, I probably would be on a collegiate level coaching, but that's never been my goal. My goal has always been to develop athletes. All right, so you don't have to be the best talent. You just got to be willing to do the work.
And I've seen you with everybody that goes from standout youths. I mean, kids that can compete and probably have competed at nationals. I've seen you with older adults just trying to fulfill a dream. And then, you know, people that run the range of anywhere from elite to amateur, and all of them are just trying to get better. And you're working with all of them in their individual, you know, meeting them where they are as individuals, but you do have a system that you can help apply to all of them that they, you know, employ on the track to build speed and achieve their goals. Like I've seen you train everybody, many of whom are going after different goals, most of whom are having success at whatever they're doing, regardless of the relative field of competition. They're all progressing.
Yeah. So the way I train is, I mean, first of all, it starts with the person. Like, do you have the right mindset? First of all, you know, do you have the because training is hard. It's not easy. You know, I think a lot of times and especially in my program, you know, I don't just train just for fun. You know, I don't train to babysit. You know what I mean? Like, I train to, you know, help people get results and so they could, you know, go out here and have the success that they you know want to have. But what I have a system as far as, like, I think, you know, the warm up got to stay pretty consistent. You know, the way you do your drills, the arm angle, and, you know, the leg drive and cycle and everything. And so I'm very, like, picky when it comes to, you know, the biomechanics of running. And then, you know, some of the stuff in between there could change based on.
Well, let me just insert. Sorry, you're not just picky. You're helpful.
Yeah.
You're helpful. It's not pass or fail with you.
Yeah.
You'll teach.
Yeah.
And you'll stick with somebody as long as they keep showing up. And eventually, much better biomechanics result for the people that run with you over time. Again, I just want to make sure people know that about you. It's not just that you have to come in and know the drills and have the right biomechanics. It's that you're going to be shown the best way to do these things, or a better way to do these things, and allowed to grow into doing those things and let them slowly filter the way you run. And the next thing you know, you're a better runner with good technique. And it happened through this, you know, few months that you spent with Jonathan doing warm-ups and drills and skips and all the work. So I just want to make sure people knew that about you. You're a teacher.
Yeah, I love to teach. You know, I mean, there's no better way to learn than teaching. And I've always been a student of the sport. You know, I think that's the difference between me too is, and I know I don't know everything. You know, I love learning too. You know, I love, you know, going out studying and picking up on some better training ways, and I don't always say that my way is the best way, you know, because it's not. Like, I like to pull from you know, I know what I know when it comes to my own training, but everybody is so different. You know, and I think when we, you know, what works for Dan may not work for my little girl Amelia. You know, the mindsets are different when you talking about training. The way we process, you know, information is different. And so when I look at a lot of things when it comes to, you know, individuals, is I don't look at the physical part. I look at more as far as, okay, what is the central nervous system doing? You know, we got the, you know, our glycogen, sugar, carbs, and lactic acid, and fats, you know, and all that on the inside. And so I train more of those systems. You know, a lot of coaches, I don't even think they really know about the system on the inside, to be honest.
Fuel. No, you're talking about different fuel systems.
And you'll know about that if you do, like, the heart rate training and stuff. Like, you done learned a lot about, you know, the heart rate zones and how it can affect your training, and for marathoners, how you want to stay in your fat storage to burn it more efficient, etc. You know, and so I've gone into great detail to really understand what I am training. I think a lot of times people get out here just because you're an Olympian or you got a background as an athlete, and you think you can come out and you could just coach. You know, it doesn't necessarily happen like that. Like, you may have the skills to tell an athlete, like, a basic warm up, etc. But how do you really take a someone who has those challenges to make them really good.
Yeah, no, and that's my experience too, Jonathan. You're a coach, you're a teacher,
Yeah.
and that's where too it's fascinating. You know, you were background almost. I was reacting earlier when you told me you ran the 1 mile and the 2 mile in middle school or whenever that was, because I remember you talking about the idea of running a 5K seemed long to you these days. But my point is, you know, as a world-class 800 runner, I experienced you and I've seen you help other people to redefine their game on the distance running. And that's just a testament to you being able to adapt what you know in a way that's appropriate for a person who may be covering a different distance, who comes to you from a different background. But that's what's really fascinating to me about you. There's a knowledge and a way you communicate to people that translates to results, no matter what their distance or frankly, what base they're starting from. And it's fascinating. I'm sorry, not to plug it too much, but I experienced it, man, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just, I mean, I traveled everywhere. You know, I didn't been to, you know, I didn't see different cultures and, you know, learn different people. And then my degree is human development, family studies, you know, and I feel bad about that because when I made the Olympian, it was like, oh, well, what do you think about human development, family studies? And I just kind of like said something and brushed it off, right? But looking back, man, that was like the greatest degree and gift that I ever could have received, and especially doing what I'm doing now, because you learn about, you know, people too from the time they're born to the time that, you know, they pass away. And then plus me traveling with the cultures and all that, I mean, I'm like, man, this is like perfect for what I do. Like I knew I'll be doing this one day, and I'm still in the field that I love doing, and I'm able to run a business and do the coaching and everything.
So let's talk. Can we talk about kind of where you're expanding out to these days? So, you know, Jonathan Johnson, the Olympian, Jonathan Johnson, renowned coach, and now Jonathan Johnson, the entrepreneur, kind of putting a broad vision. And I get back to the team builder, the team captain, putting together the infrastructure to implement a vision of kind of taking your philosophy, your system, your ability to help people coast to coast, right? So tell me about 8 Fit Ways.
Well, so we had 8 Fit Ways, and then it's Flex 8 Fitness
now. Okay.
Now flex8.com. But you know, I had some dreams.
Flex8.com, ladies and gentlemen. Flex8.com, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So I had some dreams, like, you know, five or so years back, and I think I even told you maybe about that, maybe not. But I had dreams, and it just, I knew when I left Lifetime Fitness I was gonna help a lot of people. But it was like, well, how can you help more people than what these mega gyms and stuff have? Like, they got years on top of me. They got 10,000, 11,000 members at one gym, and these are like mega gyms. But something told me that one day I would reach like millions of people. Now, didn't really understand how the opportunity, or how could I potentially even do something like that. But I had dreams a little while back, and it was about building a platform of pretty much a sports and fitness platform, but online. And still didn't even understand where this was going, but I started doing it. You know, I'm a believer in science, and I knew at that point that I would have what I have now, which I didn't know then, but it's pretty much as a sports and fitness online consultant site where you can work with, you know, personal trainers, coaches, to reach your goals as far as training goes. So, you know, you could be a runner or a weight loss person, somebody who want to lose weight, and you could use the platform. And because I specialize like that, I specialize in weight loss and all this training too. Like, that was some of the first stuff that I did once I got into the business, and then I got into the running, coaching, and all that. But the reason why I built the platform in the first place is because I knew I'm like, man, training is a luxury. You know, it's a luxury. Like, how many people really have like all this extra, you know, thousands of dollars they could spend on personal training and coaches? The reality of it is, like, most of us have kids, we have families, you know, we gotta feed our family, and we can't necessarily just spend all this crazy money to get private training. Right. And so, and I knew that because I had family who couldn't, you know, get private training. And I'm not there all the time, so I can't even coach them. Right.
So now so there's an online platform, and then how does that get distributed out to somebody that, say, whether somebody wants to work on becoming a better 400-meter runner, or somebody has a simple weight loss goal or just wants to maybe be better about their diet, how do they interface with the site to start working with trainers to achieve their goals?
So what happens is they come onto the site. There's a search engine that you could put either for personal or fitness training or athlete performance consultant. And so we got a few coaches on there who could talk to you. I can set up a call. So you come on, put your information in, sign up on the site, and then you search the coach. And then the coach that you want to work with, you get a hold of. And so, and on the beautiful thing about the online training is, it's very cost effective. It's not going to break anybody or anything. That's not why we built it. Of course, you got to pay for software and stuff like that, right? But we really built it for the people. But you come on, you interact, and we're not going. And I don't know how many coaches, trainers, and stuff we'll have on this eventually. But right now, it's just me and the team that I'm putting together, a team that I trust.
Team of coaches.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's the ones that I trust, though.
Yep.
We don't want to put a cookie cut program out there or just take somebody money and then just put give you a plan that's been out there for years.
Right.
People do that all the time.
Yep.
But that's not what we do.
Right.
But and so we have workout videos, and so like if I'm working with Dan and he wants a running program, well I could put a 4-week, 12-week, 16-week marathon program together for you. You have access to upload that to your phone pretty much. Mobile apps, mobile devices are with us 24/7. And so all your training comes through your mobile app. And then you have access to trainers for nutrition, or if you want to talk about training, or, if you're having a bad day, you can even call.
Yep. And are you still doing, because I remember you had a huge backlog of videos that would break down like every type of technique somebody might want to work on, whether they're on a track, whether it's foot strikes or drills or whatever, or maybe if they're in a gym doing certain types of workouts to isolate certain muscles if they want to come off the blocks harder. Do you still have those videos that are available so people can be looking at those and not just working on doing the workouts in general, but perfecting the technique almost as good as being on the track or in the gym with their coach?
Yep. So we have those videos as well, and also we're about to produce a whole lot more. So I'm taking like our youth athletes now, elementary kids, and we're gonna film them so we can go after the elementary kids and train them too now. And then we're gonna also film more like the high performance training for sport athletes now too.
Nice.
And so we have everything. Everything is coming, and if we don't have it, then I always tell people, like, give us feedback. That's why we're here.
Yep.
We're not gonna perfect. We're not gonna perfect like the website from the beginning, but what we can do over time is build a perfect website.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, like, I'm like, man, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Because a lot of times before you get on the inside and really understand what something is, don't judge it. I would say go on to the flexate.com, sign up, talk to, me or somebody on there, see how it goes, and get an assessment, and then, see how the training goes, but don't knock it before you try, because this could be a platform that could be very, very useful for individuals. I mean, you have great programs. It does what it needs to. It gives you great programs. We could provide you a whole running workout, and then also provide you with like your strength training throughout the week as well with that.
And at least for me, with access to the trainers, I'm going to start to kind of wrap things up here. Yeah. So first off, I got one question and a couple closing things. But question: so for the guy who, before he even, I think, got to college, he knew he was going to go to the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this business going down the road? What's the vision? Where do you know that this is going down the road in the same way that you knew you were going to the Olympics?
Well, I mean, I gotta be 100% honest. I believe that we'll be all over the world one day, and we'll be able to we'll be in everybody's household. My whole thing is that we want to be, not everybody comes to us, but we want to be a household name. Mm-hmm. And we want to provide great workouts for individuals, for teams, and we want to provide a great experience for everyone. But most of all, we want to give them what they're paying for. But and that's great programs.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
So just a small goal being in everybody's household all over the world.
Yeah, but not just that. I mean, I want to. Come on, man. Hey, I want to be number one.
Hey, I'm a believer. You know. Hey, I'm a believer. You know that. Do me a favor. Give the website one more time, and then I want to close out a little bit.
All right. So it's www.flex8, and it's FLEX and the number 8.com.
Perfect. Thank you. So now I just want people to know too about if they do engage with you, whether that's as a personal coach or through the website. You don't only teach people and help people with technique. I mean, you help prepare people mentally. And I can remember I shared a story last week about, man, you taught me so much, by the way. You changed my life. You really did. But there was one of many lessons you taught me. And I just want people to hear about, the way Jonathan Johnson thinks, the way Jonathan Johnson approaches things. And so break down for me the lesson everybody needs to learn about the third lap in a 4-lap race, or the third leg of any race in a 4-leg race.
Yeah, well, I always say that's going to be it's just life. That's going to be like the hardest part of your race. The biggest challenges that you'll face. And so it's always that third leg. It's like every time, and if you look at it, it makes sense. Like every time right before the finish line, it really does seem like challenges and all this stuff, normally comes in, like right before you're about to have the success. And so it's just like if you're on the track and you're about to get to the finish line and you're about to have the success, where your body is gonna your body will go through the most stressful part of its time, like right then and there. So it doesn't matter if you're like on a mile, it could be the third lap. If you're on the 800, it's the start of the 500, right? From the 5 to the 6, or the 4 to the 6. It don't matter if it's the 400, it's the third 100. It don't matter if it's work or whatever, or graduation. I mean, it's always like right before the end. And so I would tell people then, like, that has to be like your most focus. You're going to be able to start. All right, everybody starts. Everybody going to feel good, even on the little second part. But where you're going to be most challenged most of the time is going to be that third, that lap, that third whatever part, 3/4 of your life, or whatever you're going for. You're going to face the most challenges then, and at that point, you're going to have to make up your mind if you're going to go or not. Most people, you're going to find out, most people don't go when they get uncomfortable. But if you do go, what you'll find out is the more you go, the more you do it, that you adapt to it. And then when you adapt, now all of a sudden it's like, I'm having success. And then all of a sudden you realize it wasn't that hard in the first place. Maybe it challenged you a little bit, but it wasn't that hard. And then you start having success. And remember that. So when you're training, even when you're training, like, if you got 10 200s, like most of the time it's the 6th, 7th, and 8th one,
So I'll throw this out. I'm a big MMA fan. I texted a friend, because I tell people that story all the time. It's that third leg. You got to do more for no more results, and there's no end in sight. And I don't know if you watched. Did you watch McGregor Mayweather?
I did.
Well, McGregor got interviewed after that fight about why he gassed.
Right.
And he said, and I quote, "I don't really know, but even when I was training, I trained for 12 rounds, and I'd always start off real good, but somewhere around rounds 8, 9, and 10, I'd really start to gas out and just kind of get in trouble, and I'd just try to make my way through, and then, and then in the last couple of rounds, and I'm like, that's Jonathan Johnson's the lesson of the third lap, man. So no, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's those late middle rounds. That tax people, because again, man, you gotta do more for no more results, and there's no end in sight. And you taught me that,
right?
And then you get the choice of how you want to deal with it.
Yeah, and you always know, like, at the end of the tunnel, you see light, man. But when you can't see it, it's always hard. But if you push that third leg, though, I'm telling you, like, when you see that light, all of a sudden, you'll find a little bit more energy to finish. But you gotta go through it. Everybody gotta go through something in order to have success. Yeah. And that's just the bottom line. There's no other way around it. Like, if you're going to have success, then you're going to have a story to how that success came. But there's nobody who will ever just get a pass and say, oh, you know what, it just came easy.
Right.
Just saying.
I think on that we got to wrap it up, man.
Yeah, we good.
Yeah. Hey, I can't thank you enough for doing this. Jonathan Johnson, Olympian, world-renowned coach, entrepreneur. Thank you for coming on to Blood Blister Radio. And, yeah, man, give me the website one more time.
It's www.flex8.com. Dan, thank you for having me, Blood Blister. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to, more of them in the future. But www.flex8.com.
You got it. Thanks. We're out. Thanks.
All right.